Godzilla is no stranger to being the subject of horror media. Sure, if you put yourself in the shoes of the people in the movie, it can be pretty terrifying. Imagine a towering beast walking through your city wreaking havoc everywhere it goes. However, to us, the viewers, it's not that scary. I mean, seeing two big monsters beating the shit out of each other is more entertaining to watch than it is bone-chilling. Even after the franchise switched away from its sillier, more child-friendly tone to more mature sci-fi movies, it was never terribly scary. I mean, one of the early movies involves an astronaut going to an alien planet to find Godzilla, who was lent out to help an alien race in need. None of that really screams horror. Now, flash forward to the early 2010s. Impact font memes were all the rage and the creepypasta community is thriving. In April, a story was posted to the creepypasta wiki by the name of NES Godzilla. This story quickly became one of the most excellent creepypastas of its time. This story would also become one of the most popular depictions of fan-made Godzilla horror. That is, until the boom of many popular series would come of this: the Mandela Catalog, Gemini Home Entertainment, and many more. But that's not what we're here for. In 2023, a new series began called The Man in the Suit. This series became one of the more popular depictions of Godzilla in analog horror. It told the story of a suit actor fusing with the original Godzilla suit, eventually becoming one with it, and going on a murderous rampage. I haven't watched this yet, I don't want to know. Now, I wouldn't blame you for thinking that this is the first Godzilla analog horror. It is the most popular, after all. However, you would be mistaken. A year before the first upload of The Man in the Suit, a small channel uploaded a video. A channel by the name of the Suitmation Trials. Before we begin, I want to preface that I am far from a knowledgeable Godzilla fan. All of my knowledge consists of very fundamental knowledge. That being said, I'll try my best to analyze this series, but you'll have to excuse the minor blind spots in my explanations. Or, major blind spots. Listen, I tried my best, my autism is centered elsewhere, I'm sorry. Given this series' rather cryptic nature, I'll also be referring to various comments on the videos if I ever need to. With that out of the way, let us begin. I want to see what these trials are all about. The first video, simply titled Instance Number 1, is rather short, clocking in at 2 minutes and 15 seconds. This video serves as a simple introduction and is the most popular video to date. Honestly, it's a very stereotypical analog horror from around 2022. You got the white text on a black background, creepy old VHS tapes, the works. The series definitely leaves this shell after a couple of videos, so it's not totally unbearable. The video begins as our protagonist explains their situation to us. They say they've been interested in getting back into the Godzilla franchise, saying they believe the best place to start is the Showa films, referring to the 15 original movies that were produced from 1954 to 1975. They recount their sense of wonder they felt watching the movies as a small child with their family. Dusting off their family's old collections, they put in the original 1954 film and talk about their thoughts. However, they lament that a review of the original movies was not the purpose of this post. They say something about the second film, Godzilla Raids Again, was off somehow, and we'll see about that. They say everything went smoothly until Godzilla and
Angerius
have their second encounter, as we are shown a clip. After a few seconds, we see
Angerius.
For a second, their eyes appeared human-esque. Before we get a good look, the footage freaks out. Okay, this part is definitely more than a little silly today. It reminds me of the stupid Photoshop liquefy trend people would use in all their analog horrors. It just looks stupid. The footage turns to black as something else happens. Godzilla's silhouette appears, his eyes uncomfortably real. He stares for a few moments before he begins to speak, directly to the viewer.
Is that so? seem uneasy. Why is that? I can tell you are looking for me.
The footage zooms closer and closer and closer before landing right on Godzilla's eye, piercing through the screen.
You are not safe anymore.
A roar is heard as a distorted Godzilla is seen for a frame before cutting back to black. The protagonist says that the tape cuts here. Okay, I think that's a little more than just being off, but sure, whatever, let's roll with it. Whatever. Pausing their marathon, they say they need to get to the bottom of this, asking the viewers for suggestions or answers. The second video, titled Instance Number 2, begins as the protagonist thanks the comments and suggestions they had received on the previous video. They update us on the tape, saying it played for a second time, now being able to pass the initial point they were stopped at last time. Hold on, this doesn't make any sense. The most reasonable conclusion is that someone tampered with the tape, but how, if at all, was it able to pass the point seen in the first video? It feels like the tape is somehow changing itself while it's being played as the need arises. The protagonist claims that these issues were never present before, meaning something had changed with the tape between the time it was put into storage and now. They state that it's been in their family for decades. It has been watched with multiple groups of people. So why now? Why now of all times did this tape decide to somehow become sentient? Their father, being the quote-unquote biggest Godzilla fan you'll ever meet, denies ever tampering with the tapes. The protagonist, of course, believing him, saying, "Creepypasta bullshit was never his thing." You love seeing a self-aware protagonist. As the clip begins, the audio sounds distorted. The clip shows what I assume to be another segment of Godzilla and
Andreas.
second fight. After knocking
Andreas
down, Godzilla mounts the other kaiju, biting down on his neck. Text begins to quickly flash on screen as
Andreas
screams in agony.
None of them knew. The snap was my favorite. The cameras kept rolling. They thought it was part of the scene. They had no idea how much I loved feeling his body go limp in my jaws.
The camera pans upwards before stopping as Godzilla's head is about to leave the frame. His eyes pierce the screen once more, their detail much more apparent up close. The tape begins dissolving to static before...
I do not regret killing him. They bury what they cannot afford to solve. The screen will not contain me forever. You know that, right?
The video ends here. So, what have we learned so far? We know that this specific tape of Godzilla Raids Again is somehow capable of changing itself with no outside input. It's able to change scenes and communicate with the viewer. Whether the entity is bluffing when it says it can see the viewer, I don't know. But the point is that they are aware that someone is watching. They also know that they'll escape eventually. But what about the text that flashes by in this video? I think it's pretty obvious that the suit actor for
Andreas
was killed during this scene, unbeknownst to the filming crew. What's odd, however, is that the suit shouldn't be able to snap someone's neck like that. Based on my limited knowledge, the jaw of the Godzilla suit could possibly injure somebody, but for it to cleanly snap their neck, there has to be something else going on. The third video, aptly titled Instance Number 3, begins with the protagonist at a complete loss for words. They say they feel like they've said all they can and that this instance is just more cryptic nonsense. They say nothing has been super mind-blowing in hopes that someone will have a better answer than they do. The video starts with what looks like a behind-the-scenes still of Godzilla walking into the pool they used to simulate the ocean. Text is seen on screen.
I could never forget the first dip in the pool hall. I remember the feeling of the cool waves in my skin. It was a much more peaceful time in my life. And yet, I was never alone down there.
Three images flash for a frame each with text accompanying it. The first image, I can't really tell what it is, honestly. A corpse face? I don't know. The text reads,
They are all still here in the cold.
the second image seems to be Godzilla with a big old toothy grin. Glad to know he's keeping up on his dental hygiene while killing people. I can't make out the third image at all. But based on the shape looking similar to a bug, my guess is that this is supposed to be Mothra, but I'm probably totally wrong. The text reads,
They deserved it, after all.
the footage cuts to black as the music swells. Just before the video ends, one last quote appears.
You are still in the woods. Do not forget that.
The protagonist says that if all of this is real and Toho was indeed the cause of these accidents, then it would be public knowledge. There's no way they would cover it up. Right? I think now's a good time to talk about the channel name. Someone just drove past my house. The Suitmation Trials is certainly an interesting name, but it's nothing too crazy. However, as Luigi Fan Forever 11 talks about in the comments, the suffix mation is used in animate, obviously. In animating, you essentially bring something to life, like how in claymation you bring clay figures to life. So that would mean these suits are at least somewhat animated, or alive. To what extent is unknown, but I can assume that the trials in the name may relate to Toho possibly using this method as a way of creating more realistic monster movements. Except, I don't think these trials went the way Toho imagined they would. Shocker! Editor's note, while I was editing this, I noticed that there's Morse code right here. I don't know what it says. I can't really make it out. But it's there. Forgot to include this in the script, but this video has a lot of flashing lights, so if that's dangerous, please skip to this timestamp. Thank you. Video 4 breaks away heavily from the previous title format, being named, well, this 01001. Running this through a binary decoder, it reads immersion. Way to stick to the title theme, dumbass. This video marks a shift in direction for the series. Instead of white text on a black background with evil creepypasta looking Godzilla, we see camcorder footage of someone walking through the woods. The footage seems to distort with an image of eyes peeking out from behind something. And then it seems as if the TV the tape was being played on began flashing rapidly. Reversing the audio reveals what sounds like Godzilla's roar and someone gasping from surprise. I couldn't quite figure out what this all meant, but Level Jackpot 04 speculated that it might be the Godzilla seen throughout the 3 instances escaping the tape, finally ready to hunt down the protagonist. They also speculated that the eyes seen in the first part of the video could possibly be a part of the malicious Godzilla. Looking at the Suitmation Trials community tab, you can see an image of Godzilla facing the camera. Around the neck area are what looks like many small eyes peeking through the gaps. In the real life suits, this would normally be where a suit actor could see and breathe out of, but given the fact there's a ton of eyes, it tells me that whatever this thing is, it's far from human. Scent was the last video uploaded when I had originally watched this series. This video begins with still shots of a snow-covered forest. Given this video was uploaded in January of 2023, it's safe to assume that these images are from around the upload date. The footage shows a still of footsteps in the snow. This is really just a shot in the dark, but it seems like the footsteps started out large and then they got smaller. Honestly, this is such a crack shot theory that I think I'm just seeing things. Next, the camera pans over whatever the fuck this is. I genuinely cannot tell you what this is supposed to be. My guess is must be something similar to charred remains. We see a new shot of a knife sticking out of the ground. It's silent before a strange sound is heard. We see more footsteps in the snow before we cut back to the knife. It's quiet. Before someone walks up, they lean down and grab the knife, or picking up a pinch of snow, lifting it to their face. It's almost like they're tracking some kind of scent. Get it? Whatever. They walk past the camera, revealing either extraordinarily large feet or a real close shot of their boots. There appears to be blood in the snow. The video ends with a shot of rocky hillsides. Now, frankly, I have quite a few things to say about this video that I'll discuss later in my theories section. However, I think it's safe to assume that our protagonist is currently on the run, presumably from this Godzilla entity. I'm unsure if they were caught or if they were injured but managed to escape. Whatever did happen, the channel was inactive for a long while.
Is it Mark Zuckerberg? Mark Zuckerberg?
About a year and a half after the previous video, the Suitmation Trials returned with a new video. This video, titled Late Night With, features the visual of blood pooling in a sink drain, slowly zooming out, revealing a hand covered in blood. It seems that whatever entity was inside this tape has claimed a victim. Who this victim is, I can't say though.
Who is it? I don't know.
This video is also the first with a description, simply reading 1980. My belief is that this is the date that the interview seen in the video was recorded. The interview in question seems to be about the interviewee's time in war before the Second Sino-Japanese War. I'll let the whole thing play out.
So just to start, you were deployed in China during the war, right, Mr. Maki?
I was, yes. I was stationed in Manchukuo.
During the Second Sino-Japanese War, correct?
No, we were stationed there in 1936. War didn't start until the next year. Our regiment. There was a coup. We got sent there as a result. Punishment.
I can only imagine.
We were under command of the Kanto Gun Army. Oh, it was hell.
I never saw action in China myself. I fought in the Philippines during the war. You see the scar? A rifle butt to the face from a Yank.
My regiment, or at least the time I was there, we didn't get much action. Although
what?
Everyone called us crazy for this. It's the reason me and some other soldiers got pulled out of the regiment. They kept it secret from everyone.
I'm confused, Mr. Maki. What are you referring to?
We saw something one night. We thought it might have been the Chinese. I wish it was.
What did you see? It's okay if you're not comfortable sharing, sir. We're off course regarding the interview. I can get back to the questions I've written.
I'm comfortable.
Of course.
We were sleeping one night, but then it got all bright. We all got our guns. We thought it was a bomber or something. Maybe reinforcements.
Was it?
No, I don't know what it was. I didn't see much of it, but it was huge. There was this kid too,
When you say kid, you mean...
young. He was 20-something.
Oh.
He saw more of it than me, than all of us. Lord, you looked at his eyes and you knew he saw something. He told us what he saw. It was a monster, a demon, or something.
You were sober during this? Fully awake?
We know what we saw, what we heard. All of us. It howled at us. And it had these spikes. They jutted out like broken bones. Jagged.
Jagged spikes? What was...
I don't know. We told everyone we could about this. Higher ups, generals. They just laughed at us and mocked us. They thought we were lying.
Were you lying?
I wish I was.
It's interesting, though, what you said with the spikes. You've seen that movie, right?
The kid.
Huh?
That was him. He made it.
Honda?
The biggest takeaway from this video is that Ishiro Honda, the director of the original Godzilla movies, had seen something. If it was a real creature or some kind of supernatural entity is still unknown. However, what we do know is that it bore a striking resemblance to Godzilla. Even the interview host mentioned it. It's quite possible that when the Godzilla movies were in production, the entity came into control of the Godzilla suit for reasons I can't fully understand. Later on, this entity manifested itself in the protagonist's copy of Godzilla raids again, eventually escaping. I'll discuss my thoughts near the end of this video, but what I can say is that something is definitely wrong. Video 7 is simple, with the title reading Anniversary. Honestly, this video is much more of a filler episode than anything. I can't really get much out of this one. It appears to be a commercial for a re-release of the original 1954 Godzilla in full color for the movie's 30th anniversary. The description adds to this point, only saying 1984. This is a pretty solid indicator that the content seen in the video is from whatever year is in the description. Video is nothing strange. However, looking into it, there was never a re-release of the original Godzilla with color in 1984. There was an Italian version, which I heard was something, but it released in the late 70s. Instead of the color release, The Return of Godzilla was released as a direct sequel to the original movie. Whether the Return of Godzilla was released or even exists in this timeline is unknown. Last notable addition at the end of this video is the appearance of dripping sounds. I'm gonna sound like a broken record, but I'll discuss what I think about this later in the video. Video 8, Exclusive, is probably my favorite video from this series, or at least it's the one that had stuck with me the most after I watched it. This video description has 1984 written in it, meaning it took place in the same year as the trailer and Anniversary. This video begins with a news report about two missing vessels, the Chikimaru and the Daimaru. The report says that they had left a port the week before and were set to return that week. Shocker, but they never did return. Both the Navy and the Coast Guards are searching for the two vessels after they received a distress signal from the Chikimaru. They never received a distress signal from the Daimaru. Moving on, the reporter tells us about a discovery of an unconscious Wada Kameo. She had been presumed missing after her clothes were found on the side of the road. However, when asked about what had happened, Kameo had no memory and insisted that she had never gone missing. But then her portrait begins to change. she came back wrong. Something had happened while she was missing, and there's an unsettlingly high chance that this isn't the Cameo that people once knew. Video 9, titled Roy G. Biv, is a rather small video, and another filler. I still couldn't gather much from this one. Any of you who remember elementary school may know the acronym in the title being used to remember the colors of the rainbow, which also happen to be the colors of the color spectrum. The description reads 1984 once again. You know, I've always had a saying, once is fate, twice is a coincidence, and 3 is a pattern. Considering that the year 1984 has shown up 3 times now, and it also marks a substantial point in the Godzilla franchise, being the beginning of the more mature sci-fi centered Heisei era, this year holds a lot of importance to the channel. This video features a log by one of the colorists who worked on the color version of the re-release of the original Godzilla seen in the trailer and anniversary. Nothing of note is seen or heard throughout this video. However, the shot near the end lingers on the scene of Godzilla surfacing from the water, which I think holds significant importance. Oh, I gotta sneeze. After the log ends, we hear water dripping.
Get an ambulance here. We found her.
As the sounds get louder and louder, it transitions to a siren. Footage of a creek bed is heard as a disembodied voice requests an ambulance, saying they found her. I'm pretty confident this refers to Kameo, considering how they found her unconscious, most likely injured body. Now, I'll discuss this theory later, but I believe that in 1984, the Godzilla entity we've seen throughout the series had returned. Presumably, after the production of the first few Godzilla movies and the incident that occurred, something happened and the entity was stuck in the sea. For now, video 10, titled Hers No Longer, is the final video uploaded to the Suitmation Trials. The series finale, as far as I'm aware, is still in production. This video has thrown me for a real doozy. A lot of questions get answered during this video, but there's a lot of questions that it creates as well. As the video begins, we see various camera shots of Japanese residential areas. I have reason to believe that this is the protagonist. It seems that they've found their way to Japan, but their motives are still in the dark. We then see shots of jellyfish and other fish swimming underwater. I believe that the shot of the fish is meant to reinforce the idea that the entity is or was at some point stuck in the sea. The jellyfish could mean various things I'll discuss in a bit. For some more B-roll of Japanese landscapes, we see the shots of the forest used in a news report about Wada Kameo. This description also mentions the initials WK, meaning she holds a lot of importance to this video. We see various shots of trees during sunset before grainy black and white photos, the last one of a boat spiking my interest. We then see warped footage tinted red. The camera is positioned behind a tree watching a girl doing something with her back turned. The music distorts and we see the perspective of someone running through the woods, most likely from something. As it reaches ahead, we see the jellyfish again. The footage fades and we see a towering beast. Some of the comments liken it to a scary version of the Death Ram from Ultraman, but I don't know how. It might just be a coincidence. I don't know. It seems like a distorted Godzilla, but I'm probably just seeing things at this point. It begins talking to the viewer.
Anything you may have wished to achieve. A career to pursue, a family to start. Infinite choices for life. No longer belong to you. We know how to use your choices better than you. Will you help us?
The shot changes to the silhouette of a woman walking towards a car. I think this woman, as well as the one we see in the distorted footage, and even the one running away from Godzilla, is Wada Kameo. She walks towards the car as the sun is almost set. When she reaches the car, she turns towards the camera, causing the video to distort as the video ends. First off, as I said in the beginning of this section, I believe that the perspectives in this video, excluding the one in the forest, is our protagonist. All the footage we see seems to be around midday to sometime in the afternoon. We then reach the forest where the sun is starting to set, as seen by the reddish lighting on all the trees. I believe that this shot and all the other ones that come after are all from Kameo's perspective. However, something happens in the woods that causes her to run. We know by the ending shot that something has indeed happened to her, that the Kameo we see leave the woods isn't the same one we see enter. As for what's chasing her, I believe it's the Godzilla entity. In a post on the community tab, we see what appears to be a forest. It's dark out, but we can see the large shadow of something, along with the same eye we've been seeing time and time again, representing the Godzilla entity. I believe that the black and white photos we see is the perspective of the entity making its way through the forest. I think that the destroyed boat we see may be the wreckage of the Daimaru, although this is a bit of a stretch. I think the red, warped view we see of the girl is the entity stalking Kameo before eventually giving chase. Some of the comments of the video say that the strange Death Rem-esque creature may be a Zillion, a creature whose goal is to take over Earth and replace all humans in the Godzilla movies. House is creaking. However, I think it's different. I believe that the entity had caught Kameo, and this is the internal struggle as it tries possessing her. Its dialogue is extremely confrontational, essentially telling her to give up hope. I think that the entity is demoralizing Kameo so she can give up control of her body to the entity, hence the "will you help us?" Of course, in the end we see a girl, presumably Kameo, walking towards a car as the sun is almost fully set. She slowly walks away from the camera before turning as the video ends. I think this is meant to represent the idea that Kameo is indeed now possessed. I don't really know where it fits into the timeline, but yeah. And that is the Suitmation Trials as it currently stands. As I had said previously, the series finale has yet to be uploaded, so most, if not all, of the remaining questions will be answered. Both the woods and the idea of emerging/entering a large body of water seem to be very important symbols throughout the series. The woods are not only where we saw the protagonist fleeing through and sent, but it's also where Wada Kameo was most likely possessed and taken over by the entity. In terms of entering water, we see a small monologue from the entity about entering the pool they used to simulate the ocean in the movies, how it was a much more peaceful time in their life. What exactly this means, I'm unsure of. However, a mention of they when talking about others in the pool with them. It makes me believe that
Andreas.
suit actor wasn't the only one killed by this entity. So what? The corpses of multiple suit actors are sitting in the bottom of the pool? Well, yes.
Yes.
Honestly, I think the pool is meant to be an allegory to some kind of seclusion. The idea that Toho buried what they cannot afford to solve feels like a solid indicator to me. After the incidents involving the suit actor's death, they quite literally buried the bodies and the Godzilla entity. I have a suspicion that they may have dumped them into the water, as I'll discuss later. So, what exactly is this Godzilla entity? I believe that this entity is a supernatural being of some kind. As we heard in Late Night With, this world's Ishiro Honda had seen a manifestation of this spirit in a form we know is similar to Godzilla when he was deployed as a soldier. Some years after the bombing of Hiroshima, Honda decided to make a kaiju movie where the titular monster was based on the entity he had seen almost 20 years before. Recreating the creature he saw, I believe Honda had either intentionally or unintentionally invited the spirit to manifest in the suit. Judging by the channel name being Suitmation Trials, it's possible that Toho were trying to bring the suits to life in a more realistic way than just actors. However, this is only speculation. As we know, the suit being controlled by the entity possibly killed multiple suit actors reveling in its murderous abilities. At first, I don't think Toho realized that the suit had killed the
Andreas,
suit actor. Only later on did they realize the truth. Some time after the suit had killed more suit actors, they decided to bury this issue by dumping the bodies and the possessed Godzilla suit into the sea. Cut to 1984. Toho is preparing a fully colorized version of the original 1954 Godzilla film for its 30th anniversary. Why this seems to be unique to the series' timeline is unknown, but something about this event had reawakened the entity that had possessed the Godzilla suit, the entity that was now at the bottom of the sea. Having reawakened, the entity rose from the water and destroyed a ship by the name of the Daimaru when passing by. Its sister ship, the Chikimaru, had seen this and set out a distress signal, but ultimately met the same fate. I believe that the entity possessed a crew member and managed to drive the boat to a forest somewhere in Japan, which sounds insane, but that's the only way I can make it make sense. Around the same time, a woman named Wada Kameo was exploring the very same woods the entity was now stalking. Finding the unaware woman, the entity, still possessing the crew member, chased her down, eventually capturing her. It's unknown what happens next, but it's pretty safe to assume that the entity possessed her somehow. The fact that when she was found, she not only lacked all recollection of her disappearance, but she also seemed to come back wrong, solidifies this. Oh, and also the fact that the video is called Hers No Longer. I think that has a little bit to do with it. The entity demoralizes her, eventually taking over her body. How long Kameo was ultimately missing is unknown. We do know that there seemed to be quite the struggle, given her clothes were found discarded, and she seemed to be heavily injured when they found her. However, we know that Kameo that entered those woods is no longer the Kameo we see leave them. I also believe that the jellyfish we see in the final video is meant to represent adaptation. This could mean a few things. Maybe it's the protagonist adapting to the entity as it chases them down. It could also mean that Kameo's body is adapting to the presence of the entity. The longer it possesses her, the more she changes and warps as a result. Flash forward nearly 40 years to 2023. Our protagonist decides to hold a marathon of the Godzilla movies. Assuming that this first part takes place in modern times relative to the uploads, it's fairly safe to assume that this leaves us with a large gap of time. However, sometime in between the storage of the tape and the protagonist's marathon, the entity manifested itself in the tape for Godzilla Raids Again, waiting for someone to watch the tape, freeing it. Our protagonist eventually does, freeing the entity. I think the perspectives in Scent are of the protagonist and the entity, now possessing a new person. The photos of the snow-covered forest and then footage of a car driving past rocky hills is from the protagonist, and the footage of the knife is of the entity with their new body. It seemed that the entity had managed to injure the protagonist, but not kill them, requiring it to follow their scent. As I said in the section for Hers No Longer, I believe the protagonist is in Japan. They may be looking for a way to stop this entity, but we don't really know yet. I also believe that the colorist we hear may be of importance, however this is a bit of a stretch. All the characters we hear from either give us important information or are important to the story themselves. And considering we don't get anything groundbreaking from the colorist, means he might be important somehow. I'm also unsure how the last scene of Hers No Longer fits into the timeline, because it would imply that Kameo left the woods for an unknown amount of time and then returned heavily injured where she was found. Perhaps we'll know everything when the finale releases, but for now, that is the entirety of the Suitmation Trials as it stands. All in all, the Suitmation Trials is a very interesting series. It went from being a somewhat generic analog horror in its first 3 videos to shifting to something much more cryptic and unique. I really do think that this series is one of the better analog/internet horror series out there. Its visuals don't jump out and scare you, but they unsettle you in a way that sticks with you. If you've enjoyed this video, please go check the channel out for yourself. Creating this kind of series is very hard work, and it's much too underrated for how good it is. And if you have any theories about this series that are different from mine, please feel free to comment them. I love seeing how differently people interpret cryptic series like these. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have an entity vessel to make. What could go wrong?